I thought I knew what the option for the poor and the vulnerable was all about. But then I had a teachable moment that lasted for several years as a Bethany House mentor, walking alongside a woman on her journey from jail to Bethany and back into the community with her infant son. I soon learned that loving this neighbor, who had grown up on the streets of Rochester and had mental health and addiction concerns, was not like any other experience I had known in my life. It challenged me to my core. Pope Francis says, serving means working beside the neediest people, establishing with them first and foremost human relationships of closeness and bonds of solidarity. So tonight I want to share my story of learning about the option for the poor through my mentoring experience. No doubt, that experience led me towards the ministry and the place where we filmed this video today. Welcome to the new home of Penfield Hope at 1771 Penfield Road. I approached serving my mentoring ministry like a problem solver, and someone who's usually pretty good at problem solving and forming bonds of friendship. It took quite a while for me to realize that the angst I was feeling, the problem in this mentoring relationship, wasn't her. The problem was me. I had the opportunity as a mentor to be with someone unlike anyone I had ever met before, to look deep inside myself and open myself to new ways of expressing and receiving love. To make this relationship work, this was not optional. We often talk about, as we do in the language around this fourth theme of Catholic social teaching, that there is a deepening divide between rich and poor. Now, I'm not rich by any economic standard, but my encounter with this woman through Bethany House caused endless reflection for me on how starkly different our lives were, even though she lived less than 10 miles away from me. She grew up in a world of generational poverty. She had a very different perspective on accumulating and saving money. Her frame of reference was survival and having just enough of what she considered to be hers and her child's necessities that day. If any small amount of money came her way, it often was quickly spent or loaned to someone with a greater immediate need. No point in saving for a rainy day. From her perspective, life was one endlessly challenging day after another. Nothing I could have ever said, no example I could give, would have changed her point of view on that. It was like I was speaking another language. So how then was I to respond to her when her crises and her cries for help continued? We cannot remain indifferent before the cries of our brothers and sisters, Pope Francis says. These ask of us not only material assistance, which is needed in so many circumstances, but above all, our help to defend their dignity as human persons so that they can find the spiritual energy to become, once again, protagonists in their own lives. They ask us to fight, in the light of the gospel, the structural causes of poverty, inequality, the shortage of dignified work and housing, and the denial of their rights as members of society and as workers. As Christians, we are called together to eliminate that globalization of indifference, which today seems to reign supreme, while building a new civilization of love and solidarity. So how do we build a new civilization of love and solidarity? How do we overcome the indifference of our society? I like to think that one pathway is embracing a ministry of encounter based on these words from Pope Francis. Be ready for encounter. For me, this word is very important. Encounter with others. Why? Because faith is an encounter with Jesus, and we must do what Jesus does, encounter others. He continues that there's another important point, encountering the poor. If we step outside ourselves, we find poverty. We must become courageous Christians and go in search of the people who are the very flesh of Christ, those who are the flesh of Christ. So as this woman and I walked beside each other for several years, were we, each of us, the flesh of Christ for one another? I hope so. Now, you might be waiting for the happy ending, but that's the thing when you choose to embrace the option for the poor and vulnerable. You have to accept that there are no quick fixes to the circumstances of poverty, and you have to accept the other's definition of success. For example, during the time we journeyed together, and then in the 7 or 8 years that we were in touch, she never went back to jail for anything more than a few days. She retained custody of her child. She got him into school. And while I know she struggled with use of prescription medications under medical care, I don't believe she ever got involved with illegal drugs. These are enormous strides for her. The poor you will always have with you, Jesus said in Luke's Gospel. Can we walk alongside those who are living in poverty without expectation that we have all the answers or that they need to change to be more like us? Can we love people as they are and defend their dignity even when we wish we could do more? This is challenging stuff. For myself, I was changed profoundly. I hope that now I can understand better those I encounter who live in poverty. I hope that now I am more open to loving neighbors whose life experience is nothing like my own. I know I breathe easier when I accept my own limitations. In the 25th chapter of Matthew, Jesus sums up the option for the poor and vulnerable. I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. A stranger, and you welcomed me. Naked, and you clothed me. Ill, and you cared for me. In prison, and you visited me. Amen, I say to you, whatever you did for one of these least brothers of mine, you did for me. Material assistance and present are important components of living the option for the poor. Food, clothing, visitation. But let's recall what Father Jim and Duncan talked about in our last 2 sessions. We all have rights, and we all have a responsibility to defend the rights of others, to advocate for better systems that enable the poor to be protagonists in their own lives, as Pope Francis says. That's what I pray happened for the woman I walked beside. I pray she became a strong advocate for herself and her son. I usually hear from her at Christmas, but not since COVID started. Please join me in praying that somehow for them, all will be well. A final note on Bethany House. On the night before Thanksgiving, I sat in on their Wednesday evening prayer service, led that night by 2 sisters of St. Joseph. Everyone was asked to share one thing they were grateful for. Many of the women staying at Bethany responded enthusiastically with small blessings, and they thanked the Lord. But one woman staying at the house quietly shared that she is grateful for a second chance, that she wakes up every day grateful that she can try again to get things right. Isn't that the essence of loving our neighbor? Isn't that the essence of being loved by God our Father? Everyone deserves another chance. Everyone, every day, no exceptions.